So as we were discussing the greatest movies of all time, and we both agreed that Goodfellas is one of the greatest movies of all time, I love the scene, and this is what conjured up this memory, where Joe Pesci and Ray Liotta are in the bar, and Pesci is challenging him with, why am I so funny? What makes me so funny to you? What am I a comedian? What is I so fun? I love that scene because it's very rare that you get a movie that is that serious with the criminal violent acts that are going on in Goodfellas, and you get a moment that is so hilarious in that moment that, you know, it stands out from the rest of the picture.
I actually saw a special when Ray Liotta was talking about it, and he's like, I thought it was kind of real. Like when Pesci was fucking with me, right?
Yeah. Am I a funny guy?
Am I a funny guy? Yeah.
Why am I so fucking funny to you?
Yeah.
Comedic performances in general, right, have to be separated, in my opinion, because you got great actors who are, you know, the Steve Carells, right, who The Office, and hilarious actors on television, hilarious actors in motion pictures, but then you got just straight stand-up comics.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you break down in our pop culture GOAT list your favorite comedians? Do you split it between actors and stand-up?
It's tough because, you know, even today, a lot of these stand-up comedians are actors.
There's crossover.
Or they act. Yeah,
Right.
There's a crossover. Eddie Murphy, for example.
Perfect
how many
example.
movies he's perfect example of how do you split that up? He was an amazing stand-up comedian, but he was also amazing in movies.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was funny.
And hasn't missed a beat having to get older and kind of go into children's films, too. I mean, the guy could be funny anywhere.
Yeah, it's like Red Fox. I think if you're funny, you're funny. You're going to be funny your whole life. Look at the guys that we know that are characters.
Yeah.
Right? They're just funny.
They were born
They were
characters.
born funny. And there's just no way around it. I look at them and I laugh.
Yeah. They've been on stage in the middle of the living room since they were 5 years old.
Exactly, and they don't know it. And the best part is they don't know it. They don't know they're funny, right?
Sometimes.
Like Dustin Cunningham is a good example, our good friend that we played with.
Doesn't know how funny he is.
He's funny as shit, and he never laughs. Yeah, or he growls.
He's a troll.
He growls.
He's the
growls.
best troll in America.
Yeah. You know, my list, I got a top 10, but obviously Steve Martin's on that list, and he's one of those that crossed over into movies also.
Now, do you like Martin Short as much as you like Steve Martin?
No.
You're not a Martin Short
And
fan.
actually, Steve Martin, I've seen a couple of his comedic appearances. I mean, when he gets up on stage,
Yeah.
he's okay. I think he's better in movies.
Yeah.
You know?
He is one that I agree with you. His comedic performances, when they carve him out into movies and television, are superior.
Yes. And I've got it on this list. A lot of people won't like this, but Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby is hilarious live.
Bill Cosby, separating him from his behavior, was the first comedian that I remember in that era that didn't have to curse.
Yeah.
His
And
whole show was clean.
What a weird person he is.
Yeah.
Right? I don't curse. It was a big deal.
He was a big activist.
Before all this stuff came out, I don't curse. I don't swear. I don't need to swear to be funny. He used to say that all the time. Yet the stuff that he was doing.
He was a miscreant, a debaucherous. There's a lot of adjectives, but a criminal nonetheless.
And a really bad person.
Ended up being a really bad person.
And wasn't a person in the world that thought he was a bad person.
No.
He was on the Cosby Show.
It was...
Everybody watched.
Wasn't he Dr.
Dr.
Huxtable or what?
Huxtable, right? Or whatever it was.
Yeah, can't
I've
figure
got
that
him
one
on
out.
my list. George Carlin. I still watch clips of George Carlin. I don't think he ever did any movies. Maybe he did.
He did movies
Maybe
as
he did a
bit
couple,
parts. I don't think he was a big...
No, but he was a stand-up by himself.
The smartest.
Oh, no question.
Of all comedians. I mean, some of his stuff, you really have to run it back and pick it apart a little bit, because he's laying a lot of knowledge into the bits.
Yeah, and there was a little political side
Sure.
to him, too. Absolutely. He was definitely not a Republican.
Well, but almost to the point of that libertarian mix of he had some radical views.
He had some common sense.
Yeah.
I've got Eddie Murphy as my number 4 pick.
Delirious or Raw? Which one was your favorite? Because they were both.
How many times did you listen to Raw when you were a kid? There was nothing like it on the internet.
Definitely for language.
Yeah.
But I thought Delirious was actually better comedy and Raw was just more shocking.
Actually, there was no internet. How did we watch Raw?
So going all the way back, I had vinyl vinyl album of Richard Pryor live on Sunset Strip. Richard Pryor was my entree into Eddie Murphy.
How did we used to watch Raw? I used to watch it. I don't remember.
Had to be on HBO. Had to be on.
Yeah, it must have been
Showtime.
on HBO or Showtime or something. Because that's the only way that we saw it. We didn't have any YouTube. We had no internet.
Private TV. It was the old cable TVs. So Richard Pryor, I just mentioned, right? To me, he was the godfather of it. But about the same time as Richard Pryor, Robin Williams did Live at the Met. If you remember that big stand-up.
Yeah.
He had already been Mork and Mindy and was starting to come out in movies. But Live at the Met was one of the, talk about a cocaine-driven fever rant.
Was that the golf? Did he have the golf one on there where you chase the ball to a little?
I don't think so.
I
think that was
to a little pin up there with little things called traps.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick list of ones I want to hear if you liked them or didn't like them.
Okay.
Because these are more polarizing.
Okay.
Sam Kinison.
I have Sam Kinison as my number 2.
Andrew Dice Clay.
Say it. Say it.
Andrew Dice Clay.
I have Andrew Dice Clay on here too, especially from our generation.
Jeff Foxworthy. Larry the Cable Guy. Jerry Seinfeld.
Love Jerry Seinfeld.
Really?
Still love Jerry Seinfeld.
I love Jerry Seinfeld. Show.
I love just hearing him talk.
I like his writing, and I do. I like him in interviews.
His interviews.
I like him
great.
I like him listening to him as just a person out in the world. Not a big fan of his comedy. Maybe it's just too clean for me. Trevor Noah.
No.
Patton Oswalt.
No.
John Mulaney. He's a new one.
Yeah, maybe.
That whole group, that's why I mentioned them all in that group. I could give or take that whole group.
I love Bill Burr. My son loves my son and the younger guys love Bill Burr.
So let's get into the Bill Burr group now. Bill Burr, Shane Gillis, he's the new guy with Beautiful Dogs.
Yeah.
You like him?
Yeah.
Louis C.K. Got canceled. You're not
okay.
Okay. Nate Bargatze.
Love Nate.
The Tennessee guy.
Love Nate. Yeah.
Very funny.
He pretty much says nothing that we wouldn't say. It's just the way he says it.
All delivery.
It's all delivery.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, he's got good stuff too that he thought through, and but when he talks about his wife and about not being happy and making her happy and just the way he does it, it's awesome.
The whole family. Everything with the family is classic. Then you got Anthony Jeselnik.
I don't even know who that is.
That's the roast. The guy with the kind of the high top hair that's always on the roasts. He's done a couple. He's the one who says the most inflammatory things. He goes the farthest, right? Like he'll make a joke about 9/11. He'll make a joke about, he takes everything the furthest. Nikki Glazer roasted the living daylights out of Tom Brady.
She's really good.
Yeah. Just did the Golden Globes. She had Good Clean Filth. Was a great special. Let me hear the rest of your list because I don't want to steal them all.
Well, that's pretty much my list. Top 3 are Dice Clay. From our generation, he was it. He was it in the early 90s, in the late 80s.
You don't have Dave Chappelle on there?
I should. I like Dave Chappelle a lot. Actually, a lot of these comedians, I like hearing them be interviewed more than I do like a stand-up.
Really?
Like just an interview, just their perspective on everything of everyday life.
Yeah,
right?
they are some of the best.
Waking up, of eating breakfast, of what do you do when your wife yells at you? What do you do when you're in just everyday life.
Yeah.
The stuff that I like watching.
I like Cat Williams right now. I think he's hilarious.
Yeah.
Ricky Gervais, if you've seen his specials.
I have.
Very smart humor. Dave Attell was one of my, back in the day, one of my favorites. Do you remember a comedian in our heyday, in our youth? He just came on the scene very strong for a short period of time.
What was our heyday?
90s.
Oh,
okay.
It was our heyday.
That was our heyday.
It was. And you know what?
It was a great time to have a heyday. There was no cell phones.
We had no idea how good we had it, but the 90s were our heyday.
Yeah.
Early 90s. Where we did pretty much whatever we wanted to do.
Amen. That's what you should do in your youth.
Yes.
You should sow your wild oats.
Everybody should have a good 3-4 years of dominance over
running amok.
Something. Yeah. Running amok.
The guy's name was Richard Jenny. Do you remember Richard Jenny? He had his own show, Platypus Man, for a minute. He did a special, I can't remember what but he did Showtime and HBO. He did comedy specials. He did stand-up. Richard Jenny.
No.
Jeni. Bill Maher, he did stuff with. Dennis Miller, he did stuff with. He was hilarious. I thought his specials took his own life. A lot of these guys are super, super funny, but they're living like just on the edge of schizophrenia.
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams. Mitch Hedberg was another one that was super, super funny who had a shortened life.
Or they don't live. John Candy is definitely one too.
Oh, I love John Candy.
Love John Candy.
I put him with the actors. I mean, in the actors, I got Will Ferrell, Vince Vaughn, Jim Carrey, Bill Murray, Chevy Chase, Adam Sandler, David Spade. But John Candy and
Billy Crystal.
Yeah, the SCTV days, the Canadian, with Eugene Levy and John Candy and the Hosers.
Yeah,
that's Rick Moranis. That stuff was absolutely hilarious. Today, the other one that I think doesn't get enough run is Daniel Tosh. Do you listen to Tosh?
No.
Tosh.0?
No.
You have no frame of reference.
I've seen it. I haven't watched a whole lot of it, but...
Well, watch his old one first. If you want to get introduced, go back to Completely Serious, which is like 10 or 12 years old, maybe a little longer. Daniel Tosh is super funny. I think he's just irreverent enough to be hilarious.
And I'm looking at my list. For me, there's no one better than Eddie Murphy. No one. I don't have him as my number one, but he should be my number one. Just from Trading Places to
Beverly Hills
Cop to his stand-up routine.
48 Hours.
Yeah, to Raw, to... He was the first one that I really paid attention to. And I love Red Fox, too. I still watch Sanford and Son.
I got great pictures of Emmanuel Stewart with Red Fox.
When you hit Guide and you see Sanford and Son and it's on a certain station and it's like 15 of them in a row.
Lamont.
I'll sit there and watch them.
Red Fox days were great days.
Yeah.
If I have to just pick one actor, and he's got a new show out right now called like Good Monkey or Bad Monkey, Vince Vaughn. To me, I mean, just he's like that era.
Something happened. I saw a special on him how he got ran out of Hollywood.
Really?
Well, yeah. Have you seen him lately?
Yeah, he's in Bad Monkey right now.
Not that many.
Well,
Before Bad Monkey, when's his last movie? It's been a while. Might be Wedding Crashers. It's been a while. It's been like 10 years.
I think he's been doing other things.
I think so, but he's not hot like he was.
Well, I think he's hilarious.
I do too.
He's money.
I love Wedding Crashers. It's
and
the
Swingers.
best movie. And Swingers.
Yeah. All right. So that's our comedians. Our lists today have to be kind of cultivated a bit in light of the Super Bowl run that we are on. I think we all agree after last year's run and the big lead, 17-point lead against the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, the city of Detroit wants a Super Bowl. If we don't go to the Super Bowl, it's going to be a failure of a season. I hate to say that, but I do believe it at this point.
Yeah.
And if you don't win the Super Bowl when you get there, it's always a disappointment. So even if we get one rung on the ladder higher up by making it to the Super Bowl, you got to win the Super Bowl when you get there. And
I mean, look at the Minnesota Vikings. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Tied with the Lions, both 14-2, right? When they play,
Yeah, and the world turns quickly.
And they're 14-4 2 weeks later.
And Sam Darnold might not find a home as comfortable as he thought he was going to find it.
He lost a few mil, but he'll be fine.
Yeah. So in the guide light of Super Bowl or bust, as we see it for the Detroit Lions right now, we take a look back in time at the greatest Super Bowls. And I think this is a great topic because it's like that moment that gets frozen in time for you because there's so much pomp and circumstance with the Super Bowl parties and the gambling and everything that goes into it. Sometimes the commercials get more attention than a game if it's a boring one.
Yeah.
Especially more recently. There have been a lot of good games in the last 10 years.
So I've got my top 10 and the top 10 Super Bowls of all time. And when you look at the scores, like the 1982 game, 49ers, Bengals, 20-16. My next game is the Giants and the Bills, 20-19. My next game is the Pats and the Seahawks, 2015, 28-24. They're all one-play games. One big play.
And
a pick-off in the touchdown or pick-off in the end zone or a last-second touchdown or a fumble normally decide these games.
And it speaks to the point, all those scores you just read, under 30-point games as far as scoring goes by the individual team.
Yeah.
Defense wins championships.
Yeah. The second you say that and you bet the over, it's over. It ain't happening.
There have been a few high-scoring affairs, but
Yeah.
they're few and far between. And a lot of times, if it is a high-scoring affair, it's been a blowout game. Especially in the early days of the Super Bowl, there were a lot of blowout games. It's gotten much more competitive of late. That's where I was going.
Yeah.
Last 10 years is where you
Last
see most
15.
of, yeah,
Last
most of
15.
the great games,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you look down at it and forget what the best games were for a second, right? Because we'll come up with our list and our Mount Rushmore. For you, what was the most memorable Super Bowl victory? Just the one that sticks out to you where you're just like, that was such a satisfying outcome.
Well, it's normally a team that I really don't care about that much. So a satisfying, that's a hard one. And a lot of the games that I've got on here were when I was 10 that I didn't really care. A satisfying outcome.
Where you watched the game and you were just like, yeah.
The Patriots game where they came back. I don't even have it on here.
Atlanta?
Huh?
Where they beat
it
the
was
Falcons?
Atlanta when they beat the Falcons and they scored 3 times. And I was at Western Golf and Country Club, and I had a ton of money on the Pats. And they scored 3 touchdowns I think 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter.
To cover in overtime.
And the line was 5, and
Yes.
they won by 6.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's a satisfying
It all has
victory.
to do with gambling.
Oh,
for me.
it has to do
Without
with
gambling, I could give a shit
It's
about football.
context. It's context. That was the 2016 season. That was Super Bowl 51. They go into overtime. But think about that game, all right? Because that's at the top of my list of favorites too. Brady goes for 466 yards passing. They're down 28-3 in that game with 8 minutes to go in the third quarter.
Yeah.
And then even after that, okay, put yourself in this position. You're down 28-3. You finally score a touchdown in the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
You missed the extra point.
Yeah.
He missed the extra point. Then they go for an onside kick. Did they recover the onside kick? No. The Falcons. So you're thinking, if you're sitting there, you're thinking, okay, we missed an extra point, didn't get the onside kick. We're going to they go down to the 22-yard line. They only got a field goal on their next drive. Now it's only 28-12 in the fourth quarter. I mean, everything Tom Brady got so much sand kicked in his face, even in the second half of that game, when everybody thinks, oh, well, the Patriots took over in the second half. They didn't. They just took over right at the very end and scored the 2 touchdowns.
I mean, if you look at these games, though, I hate to say that. You could almost say this about every game, besides the game last night. But it's always one fumble, one penalty on a touchdown, that they bring back.
Oh, it was the penalty. Remember, Matt Ryan got sacked, and then the holding penalty pushed him on a field goal range. That game was over.
Yeah.
Again. The
our
Falcons
game
were
last
throwing
year.
the ball instead of running the ball. The Falcons did not work the clock.
Just like our NFC Championship game last year. If we would have kicked a field goal and not went for it, right? It's always little things like that change the whole game.
But that wasn't the personality of the team.
No.
Right.
And it's not the personality of him now. He's still going to go for it.
End of third quarter, beginning of fourth quarter. The odds of the Falcons losing that game were 99.8% against. So the chances of the Patriots winning that game were 0.2%.
And they didn't just win.
They covered. Unbelievable.
Got on here. A 2015 Pats Seahawks. Pats won 28-24. Tom Brady, Russell Wilson. God, 2015. That was 10 years ago already, Joe.
Okay, so you want that one?
That's my number 9. That's the Malcolm Butler interception in the end zone.
Well, but that one's got drama too. 24-14, right? The Seahawks are up. Brady gets his 3rd and 4th touchdown pass, the last one to Edelman, with 2 minutes left. And Russell Wilson takes him right down the field, right, to win the game. And
they got Marshawn Lynch in the backfield, and they don't hand the ball off.
Second down from the 1-yard line. It's second down. You could have run him twice.
Yeah.
And then Malcolm Butler steps in front of it.
Night.
Malcolm Butler steps in front of the pass. Worst play call in the history of you got to say it's the history of football.
Yeah.
The worst play call decision. That was Darrell Bevell. Hate to throw him under the bus. And Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
But that's what they did. they threw the ball instead of handing it to the beast mode to end the game. And they would have been back-to-back champs. They had won it the year before. That was a back-to-back Super Bowl opportunity for them.
Yeah.
Unreal. What's your next one?
Got the 1968 Super Bowl, number 3, Super Bowl 3. Jets, Colts. Jets won 16-7. Joe Namath.
So
Go ahead.
I sent you the clip of the FBI agent, the former Department of Justice. Did you get that clip I sent you on social media?
Yeah.
He swears, and of course you've heard the infamous Bubba Smith interviews that they try to sweep out of the internet, right? I think the NFL has Reputation.com cleaning up the internet for all these things. There are a lot of people who think that game was a fix. That the third Super Bowl, Namath doing the guarantee, and the story goes like this. The league was in jeopardy. The merger between the AFL and the NFL was in jeopardy because the NFL, the NFC side, was just the Lombardi Packers and now the Shula Baltimore Colts are just kicking the shit out of everybody. And if we don't show that these two leagues are competitive and that this crossover game at the end of the year, remember back then they didn't play each other.
Yeah.
It was just a crossover game for the Super Bowl. If we don't show that this game is relevant, then we got major problems. So the theory is, if you're a conspiracy theorist.
Well, the Colts threw 4 interceptions.
Well, Earl Morrall, who didn't throw that
3.
many the whole season.
No, that we talk about Earl Morrall again from Michigan, from the west side of Michigan somewhere.
Yeah, right? Earl Morrall from Muskegon.
Somewhere over there, yeah.
And he throws 3 picks mysteriously.
Yeah.
Gets pulled from the game.
Johnny Unitas goes in and throws a pick.
And he throws a pick. So that's the part where the people come in and say, okay, but
somebody's getting paid.
Somebody's getting paid.
Because they didn't throw that much back then.
Bubba Smith basically said that. This agent who was investigating fixes for the FBI said the same thing. There was a lot of mysterious things that went on in that game where you scratch your head.
I just saw yesterday, not to get off this subject, but targeting. There was targeting in that game last night, and they called the targeting, and it was nowhere near the type
Which one was it?
I can't remember. There's just no way to know what targeting is.
No, it's so subjective holding has gotten that way, but that's always been that way. PI has always also been the pass interference calls. We talked about that on a
You could call pass interference on every play. There's no question. They're touching every receiver past 5 yards on every play. You have to. Watch the Lions. We've got the most handsy DBs in the history of handsy DBs.
Helmet to helmet to me is still the most nebulous right now. I don't get it. Obviously, at the college ranks, we went over this with Texas and Arizona State.
Yeah.
The problem that I have right now is that I think everything else in the officiating of football games, especially at the NFL level, has gotten much better. 2 or 3, 4 years ago, I was bitching a lot more than I am these days. I do think that they've come to a happy medium now on holding. They've come to a happy medium now on pass interference. At least I kind of know now what you can get away with and what you can't.
Yeah.
Versus where I was at when they started this clampdown. And it was all for the receivers. Remember when it was all to make the offenses wide open?
Yeah.
And now I think they've settled in on those 2 calls, and the officials have done a much better job. You don't hear me say that very often, complimenting the NFL officials. But they cannot get this helmet-to-helmet right.
But at the same time, you have to have it. You can't have defensive receivers going across the middle and getting knocked out.
Yeah.
You can't have it. I don't know what the answer is.
Can you imagine if the 1979 Steelers playing in Super Bowl 14 would have had targeting? I think Franco Harris's entire running style was targeting.
Yeah. Actually, the great reception, that was probably a targeting hit. on the ball that bounced back, that was targeting. That was helmet to helmet.
That's one of mine. It holds a special place in my heart because it's the first one that I really remember, right? The 79 season going into 80. I was 7 years old.
You remember that?
I do. 35-31, the Steelers win that game. But I remember it because at the time, everybody loved Terry Bradshaw. He throws 4 touchdown passes, Lynn Swann and Stallworth. Stallworth and Swann went for 239 yards. Franco Harris, I don't know what he finished, but he scored the big touchdown, kind of the seal touchdown. But then you think the game's over. The Cowboys, Roger Staubach, throws another couple touchdown passes at the end of the game. They kick an onside kick. They get it. They score. And then they're kicking another onside kick. And you're thinking, holy shit, the Cowboys might figure out how to win this football game, and the Steelers recover the last onside kick. Again, a lot of those games back in that era were not that close. And that one, Cowboys-Steelers, right? The mythic rivalry really came together. Tony Dorsett being on that team, too, didn't hurt.
Yeah.
He rushed for over 100 yards in that game.
Got the Rams-Titans game. It actually made a movie with Tom Hanks. When he's on the island, for Christ's sake. Castaway. He goes, let me get this straight. The Houston Oilers are now the Tennessee Titans.
Yes.
And we lost the Super Bowl. Greatest show on turf, Kurt Warner, Isaac Bruce, Marshall Falk.
Oh, that was crazy. So
Steve McNair, Kevin Dyson on the 1-yard line with time running out.
It always throws me off because the Super Bowl year is always the year after the season year.
Correct.
So that was the 99 Rams, but it was the 2000 Super Bowl. It was right after the millennium. So obviously everything around the millennium, was a big deal.
Yeah.
That greatest show on turf team was Vermeil's. You kind of you could see that Mike Martz was taking over, and Vermeil, that was his last season. I think he had already announced that was his last season. Warner threw for 414 yards. They went up early. If you remember, that game was a shutout. That game was like 14-0. It was a 2-touchdown game, and Isaac Bruce had the big catch. You thought, okay, this game is over.
Torrey Holt. They had Torrey Holt, too.
And Steve McNair brought him all the way back.
Yeah.
Steve McNair brought him all the way back. May he rest in peace. Took him down to the 10-yard line. Threw the pass to
Kevin Dyson,
who when you watch it, he makes that in cut after he catches the ball like so many receivers do, right? And you think, okay, when he makes that in cut, the guy in pursuit is going the other direction. So he's never going to be able to stop in time. And Mike Jones, the linebacker for the Rams, stuck that arm out. If that would have been a corner on him, never would have been strong enough to drag him down at the 1-yard line. Yeah. A big linebacker put that paw on his leg, drug him down as he reaches the ball out to the 1-yard line, and they're 1 yard short with no time left.
Yeah, that reminds me of how people that didn't play football watch football. My fiance is from Quebec, and when she watches football, she can't figure out why football players don't just run to the sideline. She goes, why do you run through those guys? And I'm like, well, there's a hole there.
The play was designed. They're making
a hole. It was designed that it was placed. She goes, I just run to the sideline. So there's nobody there. She goes, there's nobody on the side. Run to the sideline.
There have been running backs who did nothing but that. They didn't last very long in the National Football League.
No.
But there have been running backs who did that.
No.
The Patriots are going to be involved in a lot of these.
Yeah.
Right? This is the testament to Tom Brady. The fact that he was so often, and the NFL owes a massive debt to Tom Brady because even when he lost games, he lost them in dramatic fashion. Yeah. I mean, that Giants game that you already brought up, that was the 2007 season for the 2008 Super Bowl 42. The Giants were written off. This was the undefeated 18-0 Patriots.
Yeah, they were the last team to get in the playoffs, the Giants. They had to play, probably 4 games.
At least 3.
At least 3. 3 games to get into the Super Bowl, and they had to play away on every game.
That was the 4th game was the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I thought it was 4 games. Yeah.
4 minutes left, 4 and change. Manning throws the ball to Tyree. He makes the helmet catch. Rodney Harrison actually gets a piece of it. Made a hell of a play on the ball. And Tyree still found a way to bring it down. And then Manning finds Plaxico Burress from Michigan State University.
Yeah.
And they win that football game. Dramatic fashion. But at that point, the 18-0 Patriots were such a villain that one was also very satisfying.
Yeah.
You when the team just wins all the time and just has the embarrassment of riches that we already talk about, you just end up rooting against them, no matter who it is.
I think so. I
mean, look at the hate on Patrick Mahomes right now.
Oh, no question.
Everybody's hating on this guy, and all this guy has done, from my vantage point, of course I criticize him about the little acting on the sideline, but all he's done in his career is be a phenomenal ambassador to the NFL.
Under pressure, on 3rd down, on 4th down, under duress, under blitz, just makes plays. He's worth every penny. I hate to say it, Probably not guy. There's probably not many guys that are worth $250 million. He's worth $250 million.
Yeah, and of course, we have to be careful when we praise people. You mentioned Bill Cosby and other people that everybody thought was, but at least on the surface, he never gets in trouble. He doesn't really say the wrong thing. Seems to be a good family man.
Yeah.
Like, this is what, it's always been my knock on people that hate on LeBron James. What else is LeBron James supposed to do for you? Right? I mean, he doesn't get in trouble. He's not a guy who seems to be constantly in dissension.
We'll see.
Well, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What does LeBron James have to do for you? He's never going to be as good as Michael Jordan. At least I don't think so. I don't think you can put him in that conversation.
I don't.
But these guys like Patrick Mahomes, like LeBron James, put them in a category and try to just think about them as human beings for 1 second.
Yeah, but then again, he's making $250 million. What do we really need to think about his feelings?
I don't care about his feelings.
Okay.
But I do care about illegitimate criticisms.
Well, that's part of the package, JoJo.
I get that it's
That's part of it. When you're a celebrity and when a ton of people are watching you and there's a bunch of money spent on you and people in this world are worrying about putting eggs on their table and you're making $250 million, you're going to get criticized, just the way the world is.
And it's my right to criticize the critics.
It is.
That's all I'm saying.
It is. My number 6 game was the 2018 Eagle
We're
Pats.
only on number 6?
That's it.
What the kind of dilly-dally? We're not even in the top 5?
I don't think so.
Jesus Christ.
Nick Foles in the
Oh,
Philly
my
special.
God, the Foles.
The Nick Foles deal where he
Who
came
threw
in.
the trivia question? Who threw it to him?
I was going to write it down. It's a name that's not a common
Not
name.
a common name. He was the reserve tight end because
Yeah.
everybody thinks tight end was Zach Ertz, but it wasn't Ertz.
No, it was
the other tight end.
It was a guy that was a quarterback in college, though. I know that.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's a quarterback.
Trey Burton.
Oh, God, I'd never
He's
know
the
that.
one who threw that
Trey
ball to him.
Burton.
Trey Burton threw
Wow.
that pass to him. Yeah, that was Eagles 41, Patriots 33, Super Bowl 52. Foles goes for 373 yards and 3 touchdowns, plus he catches the touchdown from Burton. But the number that, that's still a record is Tom Brady again in that game. Brady threw for 505 yards in that game. He threw for 505. They had the lead with under 10 minutes. He threw the touchdown to Gronk.
Yeah.
The Gronk touchdown gave them the lead, 33-32. Foles immediately responded with a 14-play drive, converted a 4th down at the 45-yard line, and threw a touchdown to Zach Ertz. And, of course, then Brandon Graham got the strip sack from the University of Michigan. Hail to the victors. Brandon Graham got the strip sack. He's still playing, by the way.
Yeah.
That son of a bitch is still playing football in the National Football League.
Playing defensive end.
Graham got the sack that finished the game at the 2-minute mark, or 2-minute-ish, to kill Brady's final attempt there. Another Patriots loss and another fantastic football game.
Unless you have Tom Brady, you've got to have your quarterback get hot. That's what scares me about L.A. Did you see some of those balls he was throwing last night?
Stafford can sling it,
Did
brother.
you see some of those? I mean, they were
Sidearm.
perfect.
Between two
Dude,
offensive
they're
linemen.
perfect, and he's the only one that can throw those.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other guys that can throw them. Mahomes can throw them, but
No.
I mean, they were right in the middle of the numbers, or right just over a defender's hands. He's just, I hope he doesn't do it again. He better not do it again.
He is quintessentially, like when they look up this phrase.
I'd still rather have Goff. I don't care. I'd rather have Goff. I would.
I think Goff turned the corner this year for me. Up until this year, I would have said I'd rather have Stafford. I told you this in the preseason.
And he had a game where he threw 5 interceptions.
I told you in the preseason. Up until Jared Goff turns the corner, I think he has turned the corner. But Matthew Stafford quintessentially has elite arm talent.
He does.
His arm is elite. When I was watching these old Super Bowl clips, I watched the Joe Namath. Oh my God, his arm.
Yeah.
In the 1960s, my man could sling.
Dude, I think I told you we played one year. We played at Miami and we played against Dan Marino.
Yeah.
And the sound of the ball coming out of the pocket, it was like if you ever play golf with somebody that kills it, it's just got a naturally fast golf swing. It's a different sound.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't even make a sound. When Marino slung it, it was like a I can't even do it, but
No, I love that. I love those stories where it just is different.
it's just different.
And Matthew Stafford
It
is
sounds different when it hits the receiver's hands. It's just a different sound all the way around.
he is different. The Joe Namath stuff was different. Nobody mentions in that Super Bowl III. We talked about, let's clear the conspiracy theories. You ever hear of a guy named Matt Snell?
No.
He rushed for 121 yards and scored the only touchdown in that game.
Okay.
Nobody's ever heard of him.
Well,
All right. Who knows Matt Snell? Who was the leading?
It was a year before I was born.
Okay. Who was the leading receiver in that game?
Johnny Unitas. I'm guessing.
A guy named George Sauer for the Jets.
Oh,
Had 133 yards receiving that
really?
game.
And that yeah.
But all you know is Joe Namath.
Yeah.
Because he predicted
Just
the
walked
guarantee.
out.
And
that's all they show on TV.
walked out with the number one.
Yeah.
I again, from the youth, favorite player. We talked about him ad nauseum when we did the running backs episode. John Riggins in the 1982 season was off his ass in every way, shape, and form. That's the 83 Super Bowl. If you remember, that was the shortened season, I believe. It was strike at the beginning, and then they went into the second half of the season. But the Redskins at the time, now the Commanders, were unbeatable. They were down in the fourth quarter of that game when Riggins got a fourth down touchdown. He leads them 166 yards. At the time, it was the most rushing yards ever in a Super Bowl. He had 181 yards from scrimmage, which was more than the Dolphins' whole team had in that game. John Riggins helps Joe Gibbs win his first Super Bowl in Washington. That's my youthful favorite. I'm going to give you one more that was a couple years after that. This one is not a competitive game, but again, we talk about satisfaction. When the 85 Bears go to the 86 Super Bowl, they gave you everything you wanted to see.
The Super Bowl shuffle.
The Super Bowl shuffle. The refrigerator Perry scores a touchdown. Jim McMahon did a couple renegade runs into the end.
That was before social media.
Willie Gault caught a bomb.
Yeah.
I mean, the defense was Richard Dent won the MVP. Buddy Ryan's defense was dominating.
I used to be able to sing that song
Yeah.
because there was nothing else on TV.
Yeah.
We didn't have social media. We didn't have internet.
We
just saw it was in front of us.
There was so much to like about that 85 Bears team with Mike Ditka.
Yeah.
And the fact that they blew him out, even in a blowout game, that's what you wanted.
Yeah.
You wanted to see the Bears take, and it didn't start out that way. If you remember, when it was 3-0 Patriots, and then all of a sudden they got stopped again, and there was a bunch of punts. It wasn't until the end of the first quarter that they said, okay, we're done screwing around.
Yeah.
But that was a great Super Bowl, satisfaction-wise.
Mine that I remember was the 1991 Giants over the Bills, 20-19, and that's when the Bills were really good. They won the AFC Championship 51-3.
You could argue that was the pairing, the contest of one of the greatest offenses of all time versus one of the greatest defenses of all time.
You know who the D coordinator was?
Oh, the GOAT. Or what some people think is
Belichick.
the GOAT. Bill Belichick. I think it's Joe Gibbs is the GOAT, but I give credence to Belichick.
I don't know if I've said this on a podcast. My senior year at Wayne State, I didn't get recruited by many people, and I went to an all-star game in Fargo, North Dakota, tested well, played well, all that stuff, and I had to travel to, 20 or 20, I think I did like 25 out of 32 teams.
Interviews.
I went out to Cleveland. They brought me back out for a second interview, and I walk in an office, and it's with Art Modell and Bill Belichick and me. I just played at Wayne State, right? I'm in a meeting room with Art, and they talked to me for like 10 minutes. But this was back when Bill Belichick was nothing, and he was
not Bill Belichick.
He was losing.
Yeah,
they lost, and we went through like a 10-minute interview. But it was pretty cool. It was cool to be part of that.
And that Belichick defense with Bill Parcells at the helm of the Giants. When you're a gambler, when you're looking at prognosticating these games, defense wins championships. The K-gun with Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Lofton. I think Lofton had the big catch in that game for a touchdown. They held Jim Kelly under 220 yards passing. They held Thurman Thomas down.
Yeah.
And still that Bills team has a 47-yard field goal. I think it was 47, 48-yard field goal to win the game.
Scott Norwood. Wide
right.
Wide right.
Nor wide,
they call it, huh?
God, Him and like guys like Bill Buckner who dropped who let the ball go between his legs. And
Well, just look at the Washington game. That could have easily clunked the field, the goalpost.
that guy could have been,
Dude.
Gonzalez could have been.
It's a game of inches.
It is so difficult to say that one guy's career can be labeled as a bust or as a choker.
Well, here's a question.
On inches.
Here's a question. Who would you rather play if you're the Lions? Tampa or Washington?
I'd rather play Washington because Tampa beat us in our own building.
So hold on. So actually, we wouldn't have played Tampa.
No, we would have
gotten L.A.
L.A.
Jesus.
And I don't want L.A.
I don't want L.A.
I'm glad to have Washington.
I don't even want Tampa. Tampa beat us this year
I
already.
am more than happy to let the Philadelphia Eagles try to remove the L.A. Rams.
Yes.
I'm going to dig back into it here
Okay.
because I'm coming right into my final sweet spot. The 2001 Patriots in the 2002 Super Bowl squeaked out the game. That was Brady's first, which means it was my favorite, right? He's coming out of the University of Michigan. Remember, that was the Bledsoe injury season where Bledsoe almost died on the sideline. Brady picks up the helm. Patriots are the total underdog. Of course, everybody loves an underdog story. This is still Mike Martz and the greatest show on turf with the Rams. The Rams seemingly don't show up in the first half of that game. If you remember, it was the Patriots jumped right out and were in control from the beginning of that game. Warner, I think, threw 3 picks in that game. The Patriots defense was outstanding. Ty Law took one to the house, made it a 17-3 game. They came all the way back to tie it. Kurt Warner tied the game, which made it a great fourth quarter. The drama had built up, but Tom Brady, the beginning of the reputation, the beginning of the legacy, takes him all the way down the field. And the greatest clutch kicker in the history of the NFL, Adam Vinatieri, kicks the field goal to win.
That has brought up something that I've been thinking about. It's going to be really hard for the Lions to win the Super Bowl. I hope they do. Okay?
You keep saying this. I love you. I love the doubting Thomas. You are the doubting Thomas.
I'm not the doubting Thomas. The only reason, the reason that I love them to win now, number one, they can run the football. Not many teams can. Number two, they play complementary football. It seems like when our offense goes down, our defense steps up. When our defense lets in a couple easy touchdowns, our offense steps up. That's rare.
Yeah.
Like you said, the Bills shit the bed in the first half and didn't, it was 21-0.
Yeah.
Or whatever that game was. We don't do that. I mean,
our offense is so good
that they can adjust and play complementary football.
They're never out of the game.
No.
2 touchdowns down.
And our defense.
They're going to score.
And our defense. When Jared Goff threw 5 touchdowns, we still won the game.
Well,
5 interceptions.
Thank God the Lions got the bye week. When this podcast drops, things will have shaken out. The Lions will have played the Washington Commanders. Daniels looks outstanding for the Commanders. Terry McLaughlin is outstanding.
Defense looks good.
Yeah. They're playing very good football.
Well, at this point in the season, no matter who's there, it's got to be a decent team.
And we're talking Detroit Lions. I mean, everybody believes that the Detroit Lions will be playing the Philadelphia Eagles. And we'll see if that comes to fruition. Mm-hmm. But again, I want us to beat the best. I want us to beat the Eagles, and then I want us to beat the Chiefs. That's the game that I want to see in New Orleans on February 9th. That's the end game. I'm going to take that ties me back to my 49ers Bengals Super Bowl.
Okay.
1988 for the 1989 Super Bowl. Joe Montana, right? The performance of another
that's when they started calling him Joe Cool.
Northern California, right? And Jared Goff is a Northern California kid. So of all the quarterbacks, if you had to tell me who does Jared Goff, of all the great ones, who does he remind you of? He reminds me of Joe Montana. Long, lanky. He's way faster than people think. He doesn't run all the time, but when he does, Jared Goff is fast. He can get to the so I think there's a lot of similarities.
So there's a funny story about that game. So in the final drive of the game, Joe Montana comes into the huddle and says, "Isn't that John Candy in the crowd?" Did you ever hear that one?
Yeah. Remember, Anthony Frederick referenced it just a little bit. Remember when he came on?
Yeah.
It totally loosened everybody up.
Yeah. Isn't that John Candy over there?
Yeah, you take all the pressure off. Sometimes you just orchestrate your team the way you know best to release the pressure valve. Sure. He threw for 357 yards in that game. Cincinnati took the lead with about 3 minutes left. It was a 92-yard drive, the John Candy drive that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. It was 11 plays, and he threw a pass to John Taylor. Cross that was just a beautiful thread, kind of like a skinny post up the middle, going right at the goalposts.
Sexy.
Oh, I'm telling you.
That's a sexy face you're giving me.
I'm telling you right now. And the 49ers and the Bengals had squared off before. If you remember, I think it was Super Bowl 16, the one at the Pontiac Silverdome. They had scored Ken Anderson, and I think this one was Boomer versus. But the earlier one was Ken Anderson versus Joe Montana. And when it was Dwight Clark. But I'm telling you that 49ers team with Bill Walsh gave obviously the Lions nightmares, but gave everybody nightmares through that era. And that was the first Super Bowl where I was like, oh, okay, this Super Bowl thing, it had been there had been some duds leading up to that. There had been some blowouts.
I agree. I remember that Silverdome. I remember the Silverdome game, and I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
This is really
We finally
cool.
got one in Detroit?
Yeah.
So what's your final coup de grace?
Well, we've already talked about them.
Which game, just your opinionated best? Best Super Bowl.
Giants-Pats, where the Giants won. David Tyree catch.
The Tyree catch.
We've already talked about that. Plaxico Burress with 35 seconds left.
I'm going to mention one we haven't mentioned yet as my favorite.
Okay.
My AFC team, remember, I did leave the Lions. Other than when you played for them, I swore off the Lions for a section of my life.
When I played for them, you did?
I rooted for them.
I got pictures of you on the field with me.
I rooted for the Lions when you were there. But I did have moments where my faith was tested, where temptation pulled me away. My AFC team was always the Steelers growing up. Loved the Steelers. In 2008, and this is, you got Bill Cowher and Mike Tomlin, the Ben Roethlisberger.
Or was it 2009?
It was the 2009 Super Bowl. 2008 season. You're
Kurt
right.
Warner,
You're right.
yeah.
The Kurt Warner game where he hits Fitzgerald. I think there's like 2.5 minutes left. They take the lead. Let me go earlier in that game, right before the half.
Okay. The fumble recovery for the touchdown.
Warner's driving him down. There's like 12 seconds left. He's taking him in to score the touchdown and really put a stamp on the game. I mean, at that point, the Cardinals would have had complete control of the game at the half. And James Harrison picks it off and goes 100 yards with no time left. If he almost got tackled inside the 10. There would have been no time left. They'd have gotten no points.
On the one, yeah.
They would have gotten no points. Harrison fantastically finds a way to get into the end zone. They go into the second half. Warner and the Cardinals bring them back again. Fitzgerald catches that 64-yard touchdown. And then Ben Roethlisberger to, do you remember who it was?
Antonio Holmes.
Oh, one of the great names.
With the toe tap in the
double toe tap in the corner of the end zone. One of the greatest, probably the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. I know people like the Dwight Clark one from Montana, but that catch, and David Tyree, but that wasn't a touchdown catch. That catch and the fact that it was Santonio Holmes. Don't you just like to say that name?
That's kind of a cool name.
Santonio Holmes.
It is a cool
catch.
name.
That one for me.
I mean,
my favorite.
I don't want to be called Santonio, but I like it for somebody
Santonio
else.
Beer.
For you, Santonio Goff.
Thomas Edward Santonio Beer.
No, thank you.
Does that one put the cherry on top, or you got?
I think so. I mean, I got the '79 Steelers, Cowboys. I mean, there was 26 Hall of Famers that played in that game. 26 Hall of Famers. 11 Steelers and 7 Cowboys are in the Hall of Fame of the NFL.
26 Hall of Famers on the field for the Cowboys Steelers.
Yeah. Bradshaw threw 4 touchdowns. Staubach 3 touchdowns.
That one was a duel.
Tony Dorsett had 140 yards, and the Steelers won 35-31. Look at all these close games. Yeah, there's some blowouts, but most of them are close. A play or a field goal or,
At the point that Tom Brady led the Patriots back in 2017 against the Falcons, I was done with the Patriots. Going into that game, right? That's what I was saying. Like, they were the arch villain, right?
Yeah.
Even going back to 2007, they were. but that turned it for me. I came back to really appreciating Tom Brady in that game because it was such a remarkable achievement.
Remember the Edelman catch?
Yeah.
Where he caught it.
Just got the hand underneath it. Wasn't it tipped or
yeah,
it was some kind of a deflection?
Yeah, it was deflection at the line of scrimmage, and then he caught it.
Got the hand underneath it. So many. Amendola had an amazing game.
Yeah.
So many things about that game made you look at Tom Brady differently. Even if you were a hater, you looked at that game and said, I don't care how much I dislike a favorite that always wins, like kind of like the New York Yankees, right?
Yeah.
I don't care how much I dislike them. That was historical.
I agree.
That was a historical win. I did promise that we would get what is the best beverage in the winter. It's snowing outside. It's snowing outside, Tom. Deliver our faithful a couple of beverages.
I'm not big on these. A chai latte.
Wait. Are you just picking
tea?
stuff up off the internet?
No.
You just Google good hot beverages?
Pretty much. I'm not talking about what I drink.
What do
I'm
you
talking
drink
about
in the
what
winter?
other people drink.
Is it the Butcher's Cut?
Yes. That's my number
Detroit
one.
City Distillery?
That's number one.
So whiskey is your number one.
Oh, sure.
For
No question.
wintertime.
Yeah, and I don't want any coffee in it. I don't want an Irish whiskey. I don't want any Irish coffee. Just a little whiskey. I don't want any ice cubes either.
No ice cubes.
No, just
room temperature whiskey.
That's it.
All right.
That's it. A hot toddy, which has whiskey in it, honey, lemon. If you're sick, try one. They're wonderful.
Oh,
you get a little hungover. You never had a hot toddy?
Tom Beer's Home. We have a new segment. Tom Beer's Home Remedies.
Well, they all include
the Beer
liquor. Man's
Home Remedies.
Oh, my God! I got Irish coffee on here, hot cider, and number one is hot chocolate. Nice hot chocolate, hot cocoa.
You're a cocoa. How about no Spanish coffee? You don't get into that little.
Yeah, well, you could get
spicy
into that
stuff.
Yeah, sometimes you throw a little tequila in it, a little vodka,
a little
whatever
kick.
Whatever you got.
All right,
whatever you need.
This has been an expertly produced, a mundane walk through the history of Super Bowls. It was an amateur delivery by myself
and me.
Well,
I'm an amateur.
I would say that you kicked
it up
a notch.
little bit? Oh.
You kicked it up, and you're semi-pro.
Wow.
A semi-professional oratorical by Thomas Edward Beer.
I'll take it.
And we at GOATQuest, thank you for listening. You can find us again on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, all the platforms.
Like us, share us, all that stuff.
Share us. And remember, the most important thing is that when you go out into the world, be a GOAT at whatever it is that you're doing today.